In this video, we're going to look at the question, what are attitudes? Hi, I'm Ron with Lead Skill, and we work with leaders and their teams to help them go further with emotional intelligence. So what are attitudes? I think most of us can identify attitudes in ourselves and in other people pretty easily. In fact, we often use the term, oh, they have a good attitude, or they have kind of a negative attitude about things. And that's something that I've actually seen. In fact, in the management consulting world where I work, we have a saying that companies usually hire people for their skills, for the resume, for how they interview for the job up front, but then they fire people for their attitude, especially for a poor attitude or a bad attitude that they just keep bringing to work over and over. It brings us back to really look at what are attitudes. And there's a couple of things I've noticed. We make some common mistakes. One of those is equating an attitude with a feeling or an emotion. And there's some overlap here because an attitude does have an emotional component to it. They also, though, are part of our habits of thinking. And so an attitude, I'd say, exists kind of in the middle ground between a feeling or an emotion on one hand and our thoughts or our habits of thinking on the other. And so an attitude has both the thinking and a feeling component to it. And so we've shared a couple of examples. I mean, positive or negative attitude, maybe an optimistic or a pessimistic attitude, a good attitude or a poor attitude. And each one of those, I like to use the example, something that I learned from the world of flying, small airplanes. And in airplanes, we have a lot of instruments, but there's a few that are key. And one of those is called an attitude indicator. So an attitude indicator, in really basic terms, shows you how the airplane is oriented in terms of the horizon. All right. So you really, most of the time when you're flying, you want to keep your plane straight and level. And the attitude indicator shows you how you're set in terms of the horizon. And that's a really helpful thing, especially if you get into some bad weather. And so if you're flying through clouds, it looks exactly like heavy fog on the ground, where you really can't see things around you. In fact, strangely enough, you can't even tell whether you're flying straight and level if you're in the middle of a cloud. But the attitude indicator on an airplane shows you whether you're straight and level or whether you're headed up and you might risk stalling the plane, or whether you're in a descent. And so it would be really helpful, I think, if we took time in our daily lives to just do a quick check-in with ourselves and say, what is my attitude? What is my attitude right now? What kind of attitude do I have? How am I set in relation to the world? So I've come to the conclusion that if you want to look at your attitude, another way to consider it is, say, what is my mindset right now? What kind of mindset am I carrying into this situation? Someone is talking to me and sharing some feedback. I don't like what I'm hearing. I might have a negative attitude toward them. And in the world of education, we have really explored this a lot and talked about whether you have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. And depending on your mindset, it's going to have a lot of impact on how you receive that feedback, whether it's going to benefit you and you do something with it, or whether you resist it and you're defensive about it. So attitudes and mindset have a lot of overlap, and I would suggest leaders and their teams make it part of their regular practice to do a check-in and say, what is our attitude? What is my attitude right now? And what is our general attitude? Because we can have a us versus them mentality. And you can be competing and have a competitive mindset, and that can be a good thing, but it can also create some blind spots and it can take you in the wrong direction if you're hyper competitive, or if you let that blind you to other things that are happening around you. I hope you found this helpful. about really looking at what are attitudes, and especially the tip about doing a check-in about what is my attitude right now, what is my mindset, and making that part of your regular practice. That really fits into a larger body of work that I've done on mindfulness. And you can learn more about that in another one of my videos about a whole model and approach to mindfulness or mindset by asking about what is my attitude. So check that out. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, you can do that down below, and we'll see you on the next video.